You are listening to Feeling Good, a podcast for dentists. I'm Dr. Laura Mock, the life coach for busy dentists. This podcast explores how to feel better in all aspects of our lives so that we can be our best leaders. If you have been feeling stressed about being the owner of your practice and you want to change what you are getting at work and in your personal life, you are in the right place. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my podcast. Today we are putting out another bonus episode, which is an interview with a dentist that I know you're going to find so fascinating. Today we interviewed Dr. Noemis Cruz Orcutt, who a few years ago had a really good story. I don't know if I should tell you or not. Basically, she lost her practice to a fire. And spoiler alert, she's back up and running. But she has such a good story, and she had so much strength and bravery. And I feel like her story is such a good example for us to be looking at right now, as all of us are simultaneously out of work. So don't miss this story. It's so good. It's so wonderful to hear from somebody who has been through it before. And she gives us some advice near the end. You're not going to want to miss her advice because I took notes. I definitely want to take her advice myself. So enjoy this, and we will see you at the end of the show. I just want to welcome to my podcast Dr. Noemis Cruz Orcutt, who practices in Mason City, Iowa. Noemi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
We were just talking on Instagram earlier today because you had responded to something that I had put on there. And I was like, oh my gosh, this doctor has a story to tell. And I think maybe we should have her on the podcast because you have a story that I think is going to inspire a lot of people. So I'm just going to kind of let you take the stage now and tell your story.
Well, thank you, Laura. It has been actually about a year, 3 months, that was 2018, New Year's Eve, December 31st, that I had gone to the office with one of my assistants. We weren't seeing patients that day, and things were strange. The alarm system wasn't working, and in my office, my computer was shut down and lights were flickering. So we checked, make sure that the brakes were on, the electrical brakes, and what's going on. Why is the computer shut down in that area? Lights were flickering, so everything seemed fine with the electrical breakage area. But then it was New Year's Eve, so that I remember calling the alarm system, and I'm like, well, there's no signal to the alarm system. What's going on? Their response was, well, it's New Year's Eve with the holidays. We don't have anyone that could go in right now. I also called the electrical company, and they had been in a month before because we had some lights that were flickering, and they told me it was the wind at that point. So it was about a month before.
Mm-hmm.
And so my assistant was there too, and we called, and they're like, well, they're tied up. It's New Year's Eve. We'll probably have to wait until Wednesday. That would be January 2nd. And I remember calling them back, and my main concern that day was, well, if I come back on Wednesday after being on the holidays and I don't have a computer and a scanner, a printer, what's going to happen? That was my main concern. So then I called them back and I said, should I unplug everything that is turning on and off in the office, so when I come on Wednesday, at least I don't have them fried up? So they said, yeah, go ahead and do that. So I remember leaving the office at noon, and my assistant left shortly after. That night we were having a New Year's Eve party at our house. So it was at 6:30. We were having people over, and kids were going to be around too. So at 6:20, I'm getting ready, and I get a call, and they confirm my name. And it was a similar call to the calls when I used to get, oh, your alarm system is active now. Is anyone in the office? So I was like, oh, what an inconvenience. They're calling me because the alarm system is going off.
Mm-hmm.
So then actually her response was, your building is on fire. Just And I remember the shock. And my husband came in to the bathroom. It's like, everything okay? I'm like, well, the building is on fire. I need to go there right now. So I remember driving. It's only about 3 minutes from my house. So I said, in 10 minutes, people were going to be coming over. So I said, we'll have the party. I'll be back. I don't know when I'll be back, but people are on their way. There's not much we can do. So as I'm driving over to the office, I get another call and they ask me, are you on your way to the office? And I'm like, is this a prank? I was like, is someone calling me back? Just like, oh, it's a joke. Don't worry. Like, no, yes, I'm on my way. So actually, I'm on my way. The street is closed, everything. And you see the firefighters, the police, everyone trying to put the fire down. The unfortunate part is that the alarm system was not working. So we did not know that it was going on until people were driving by and seeing the flames coming out of the windows. So
wow.
So that's how I ended 2018. And so, yeah.
So did you tell me about the extent of the damage?
So pretty much it was concentrated in one of the hygiene rooms, and then also in the sterilization area, but the smoke damage was everywhere. Everything that the heat was so strong, everything that was plastic melted, even if it didn't get burnt. So then the TV was completely melted. Everything was and I remember I was in the parking lot, and my first thought was the team. What am I going to do? We don't have a place to work. And I did not want to call them that night because it was New Year's Eve. I was like, well, they're with their families. I don't want to bother. I'll wait. But then obviously they heard about it and they started calling me. So then I felt comfortable telling them what's going on. And I, just the first thing I remember telling them was like, I don't know how, but I'll be taking care of you. And then worried about my patients. One of the firefighters that was there, he was a patient of mine. And he asked, is my crown okay? I'm like, I don't think it's in the building because it was still in the lab. He was like in the process of getting the crown. And he was one of those that was, but I spent 2 hours in the parking lot just staring at the fire. It took about an hour for them to put it down. And, I was in shock. You don't know, it's dark, that's all you're seeing. And they asked me if I wanted to go in and see the damage. And I said, I have seen enough. I'll wait until tomorrow. But they told me to prepare that everything is a total loss. So the first things that came to mind, when you're in shock, you don't grasp what's going on really. But I thought about my team. I thought about my patient. And then I was like, this is going to be a lot of work. It's like, then it kind of starts sinking in, okay, everything that's going to happen. And then I came home and I had told my husband, just have everyone still at home, because when I want to go home, I want to have people around to be, to be able to celebrate, not so much celebrate, but just have some support.
Yeah.
And that night, going to bed, after midnight, going to bed, it started daunting on me about diplomas, things that are, you have an emotional attachment that you might get a copy, but you might not see the original. And the next day going in, even though everything was melted and smoke damaged, the frames of the diplomas and awards were completely melted, but the paper was intact. And I mean, it was just one of those things that it's amazing how a fire can burn so much and destroy so much, but there's certain things that are untouched. So
that is amazing.
Yeah, it was interesting.
I have to make a comment, because you told me that when you found out the building was on fire, one of the first things that you thought about was your team and how you were going to talk to them. And I have to say that going through this, this virus pandemic that we're going through right now, I had a really similar thought. I was like, I can't close. I have people who work for me and they have jobs.
Right.
And it's interesting how our mind, especially I think female owners, we go to that, what's going to happen with our team when there's a catastrophe.
It's like you're like a mom.
Yeah, I feel like a mom, like a mother bear of my employees.
And that was my, I, to be honest, and I don't say this to make myself look good, but I didn't really think about myself on that at that first. I didn't really think how is this going to affect myself. It's like you're like, okay, I have a lot of people to take care of.
Yes.
And then how am I going to do that? It's going to be a lot of work, and how do I make sure they're okay? Thank goodness I didn't really know that right away, but I had business interruption insurance.
Mm.
And I didn't know that right away to communicate with them. But once I found out the next day after talking to the insurance agent, it was a big relief, because and right now what we're going through, doesn't really apply.
No, it doesn't.
So that's the difference, with the fire. At least I had that. Now we have other aids that we're trying to get, but it's
Yeah.
not as straightforward or guaranteed.
So, one of the reasons that I wanted you to come on here today is because I want to hear about sort of like your emotional journey from when you went from the shock to the acceptance of the fact that your practice was closed. And how did you get back to getting open? So, you can tell me the story, you can tell me what you were feeling. Just keep on talking. You're doing great.
So yeah, so you have the shock, and then it just becomes reality.
Mm-hmm.
Starting, the next day was just overwhelming in terms of, like, even that night when the police told me, well, we put some covers on the window, like plastic covers, but someone can get in. And I said, well, if you said everything is completely destroyed, why do I worry about it? And he's like, no, someone can get in and hurt themselves and then sue you. I'm like, okay, so on top of it, I have to worry about. So then the first thing, the next day was trying to find a contractor, get that the windows boarded, contact
Mm-hmm.
insurance, contact IT, because one thing that happens is, like, thank goodness I had the cloud, like everything was
Mm-hmm.
backed up in the cloud,
Mm-hmm.
but there was no computers. There's no phones that we could call patients. There's no computer. So then I had Lighthouse 360, which I still do. So I was able to log in from my house and send messages for the patients on Wednesday and Thursday right away.
Mm-hmm.
So that was great. And then also contact my IT company, and it took them 2 days to put all the information from the cloud in a remote server that then eventually we can access. Then trying to find a cell phone that they would hook the phone from the office to answer calls. So it was busy. It was meeting with the insurance agent, insurance adjuster, and also then on the Wednesday meeting with the team and what are we going to do? Because so then that's when it started. We met, and one of the hygienists actually mentioned there is a building a block away from our office that is for lease, and it used to be a pediatric medical clinic. So then that same day we contacted the realtor, and he walked us through, and my first impression was like, no, this is not going to work out. But because the rooms are set up differently and all of that. But then that night my sales representative, dental sales from Henry
Mm-hmm.
Schein, Brett Dre, I had talked to him the night before. So he contacted me and he said, this company in Indianola, their name is Downing Construction, heard about your fire and they want to help. So then, yes. So then that was Wednesday. The fire happened Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
So then Wednesday, so then they said they're willing to come up tomorrow. That will be Thursday. So Thursday we went over the potential building and then we also had their Henry Schein for the equipment and see if it would work. They said we can make this work. So then then it was finalized in a lease, and in 7 weeks they had that building ready for me to go in. Henry Schein and Midmark had lended me equipment.
Mm-hmm.
use for knowing that I would be buying new equipment from them. So in a 7-week turnaround, it was a pretty functional clinic, and I had one room for myself and then 2 hygiene rooms. So I was limited of what I could do because I only had one room for treatment, but at least would keep us going. In the meantime, within the 7 weeks, one of the orthodontists, he works in town 2 days a week. So the other 2 days, he let us go in to seat crowns to proceed with denture steps to do emergencies. So it was very helpful to have that space to see some patients, but all hygiene was postponed, similar to what we're doing right now. And maybe that's why I'm not so worried, because it will work out somehow. Emotionally, what helped me the most was that it was amazing. I was in the office in the morning, and that night the office was destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So then realizing in a split second you can lose so much. But then it clicked to me what I did not lose. I did not lose an employee. I did not lose a patient. No one got hurt. So instead of what helped me is like, instead of focusing on everything that was lost, I focused on everything that didn't get lost. And it was just automatic gratitude. I'm like, thank goodness I have my family. I have my home that I can go to. My employees are safe. My patients are safe. And we're healthy to proceed. And having that mentality was honestly what got me through. And the community was so helpful. The dental community was very supportive. They saw my emergencies when I didn't have anywhere to see them. They offer space. It's having that, and then the team was very supportive as well. And to be honest, we became family going through it, because and once you have, once something like that happens, the little things that used to bug my mind went away, because I'm like, okay, everything burnt and we're still here and we're going to continue. So the little things that were annoyances disappeared. And to be honest, this sounds weird, but I became a happier person after going through that, because you're dealing with a bigger problem than the little buggers that can be in your mind constantly.
Yeah. So that's so interesting, because you just said after the fire took away your office, you became happier. That's amazing.
And it sounds impossible, but I think, sometimes in general, not just at work, but in life, we can focus on little things can be going well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our mind always finds something that, okay, this is not good enough. We can make it better. And when it's not a real problem, it's almost like worse, because you're creating it. But then when it's something that is out of your control, but you have to work to make it better, your mind is occupied. It's like, okay, the little things are not bugging me anymore.
It's so weird that you would bring that up, because I was just listening to a book yesterday. It's called The Big Leap. I wish I could remember the author, but I'll put it in the show notes.
Sure.
And he was talking about how our human minds are wired to keep us within a certain amount of happiness. So if we're getting too happy, then the brain's going to find a way to figure out how to keep us lower.
Right.
When you make the big leap is when you accept the fact that you can be happier and you learn how to get past it, which I think is mostly awareness. I haven't finished the book yet, but what you found out when the practice burned down was basically an opportunity in contrast, where you said all those little things were not worth what I was making them, because now I can see it can all go in an instant.
And also I remember, well, I grew up in Puerto Rico and we had hurricanes.
Right.
When I was in high school, there was, after Hurricane George, we were 3 months without power.
Mm.
And we had a generator, but then at 8 p.m. you have to turn it off, because you have to go to sleep, and the fumes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And what I remember of that situation, now I'm like, wow, that was crazy. But you remember being with family, and if you're safe and if you have love, you're fine. Once you start, when you're not safe anymore, and then you have other troubles, yeah, I can see, it affects the happiness. But once you have that sense of security, and 2017 was the hurricane that, Puerto Rico, my parents were without power for 9 months. So they did that. And then I had the fire after that happened. It's like, they never complained. So I'm like, well, I cannot really complain because I still have a house to go to, and I have power, I have water, you
Right.
have your needs. So putting things in perspective.
Mm-hmm. That is amazing. And speaking of perspective, because you've lost your ability to practice once, now we have this new problem, and it's a little different than it was before. But like, what are you taking from what you learned before and applying it now?
So I think that when we found out about having to close the office, it wasn't as big of a deal as it would have been if we wouldn't have gone through the fire, because almost
Mm-hmm.
felt like we have done it once, we have been fine,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be fine. So it was amazing that Monday was the 16th that they were said, okay, we're on the 17th, we're going to not see elective treatment, not urgent treatment. So the staff was like, okay, they started calling patients like it was not a big deal, because they have gone through it, and they knew we can do it, and we would be in. After going through the fire, we came back stronger. We had a facility that we love. Patients were very loyal, and we have had new patients coming in after that happened. So we our main thing was like, okay, we need to be safe. We need to, this is not safe for us to be here and see patients. So let's do what needs to be done. And definitely, I know that because going through the fire, it helped us. And the staff, Shannon, one of the receptionists, said, well, at least we have a desk and a computer and phone that we can make phone calls from, or we didn't have any. We was just like trying to find a place to meet. So that mindset, and again, is having that mindset that, okay, let's focus on what we have that is good. We're healthy. We have a facility that we can call patients. Nothing bad has happened to us other than, yeah, we're losing revenue, staff, the team is not having work, but we're not the only office going through it.
Yeah.
It's a it's the whole world that is experiencing the same.
So you have all these owners of dental practices that are listening to this podcast, and they're all going through this similar thing where they're forced to be closed even though they don't want to be. And I'm just curious, like, what advice would you give them right now to help them through this time?
I would say trust that even though right now it doesn't seem hopeful that we're going to be opening anytime soon, or there's a lot of concerns in our mind of how are we going to come back, trust that it's going to be fine. And that's what I'm telling myself. There's something, when things like this happen, there's always a silver lining that comes after this.
Mm.
And taking this opportunity to think of, like we talked earlier, Laura, like what, instead of what I don't want out of the situation, what do I want out of this situation? Thinking, how can I create my best practice yet, my best team culture? What can I provide for my patients that I wasn't providing? Now is the time to make a list of these things that you want to learn about. And one thing that my mom has always told me is like, instead of thinking about what you don't want in your life, which is that fear,
Mm-hmm.
think about, if you can think about what you don't want, you can think about what you want in life, and we can create it. we can, with our mind is so powerful that many times we see what we don't want to see because that's what we're focusing on. So then
Mhm.
what do we want to see out of this situation? And it's not easy because I know, it's stressful not having um, the ability to take care of patients, of bring revenue, to take care of your employees, and but trusting that think, things are out of our control. And what can we control in this situation? We cannot control when necessarily we go back, but we can control how we can come back
Mhm.
to it.
I've been taking a similar stance. What I've been saying is there's things that I can't control, but here I am, and what I can control is how I'm going to show up now. So if I look at myself a year from now and I go, what did I do during the COVID-19 crisis? I can say, I did this, this, and this, and I wrote it down and figured out how I want to be. And it's like you said, instead of focusing on what you don't want or focusing on what you're afraid of, you can think, what do you want to create? Like your mom taught you, that's so cool. She did that. And she's been through all these trials
Mhm.
and she's raised you an amazing person. So there's reasons to trust her, you know?
And the mind is pretty powerful in terms of
Mhm.
what we can create. And I try to, with my 7-year-old, he tends to go to sleep, and when he's going to bed he's like, oh, I'm afraid of this, or nightmares, or things. And I try to give him the same advice. I'm like, well, what is something that you like? What was great today? What is something that you want to do? And then just let's change our minds, because we can apply it to everything, not just this situation.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Any other words of advice for these people, these dentists listening to your story?
I think another thing that helped me through the fire, and I'm trying to do now as well, not as much but it's keeping like a journal or a
Mhm.
list of things of where are you at, where do you want to be, what are you doing, if you're taking CE, or just write things down that you want to apply, so then you don't forget. In my case with the fire, I had to keep track of everything for insurance purposes, for all
Mhm.
documentation. But I think it applies to now as well, because we'll look back at this as a journey that we went through, and we may not experience this again. You might hopefully don't experience this again, but what did we do with this time? And when we look back, it's like, what do you enjoy from this time, spending more time with
Mm.
family, with your kids? I joke that I don't think I'll have this much free time at home until I retire, because if I take time off, it's going to be usually travel or
Well, going
uh,
back home or
back home. And so then I think writing down the journey would be helpful.
yeah. I think that's really smart because left unchecked, our brain is going to do what it's designed to, which is to protect the organism, which means it needs to be constantly on alert of what it needs to worry about, and that doesn't feel very good. So if instead we redirect our brain towards the things that it's powerful, so it can totally do more if you ask it to, then we're creating something that's more intentional and not just living in a worry loop that leaves us kind of frozen in action. We can't do very much when you're feeling frozen. But if I have this dream of what I want my practice to be like, or well, how I want to spend these 3 months or whatever, then you have something that you can redirect your mind to. So I think that's great advice.
And I think another advice would be keep in touch with your team. Even if it's not, you don't have to have meetings uh, or formality, but send them a text or something funny, or just be in touch with them, that they still feel connected. Because
Mm-hmm.
if we're going through a lot of um, concerns, they also have a lot of concerns that
Mm-hmm.
are known. As leaders, we have more control, but they have less control. So just making sure that they know we're thinking of them. The same with the patients. Uh, I've have called some patients that I know are in the middle of some treatment, just reassuring them that things are going to be okay, how you're doing, but just keeping in touch with them. So that's helpful. And that I guarantee that the team is going to come closer together after going through something like this.
That's really true. I didn't even think about that, but this is a unifying thing that we're going through. Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, I just want to thank you once again for coming on here. I just know your story is going to be so inspiring for so many people. So I really appreciate you taking the time and also opening up and sharing those things with us. I thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be able to share it.
Yeah, that's amazing that you can feel that now, that you can sit there and be grateful for what happened. Yeah. Amazing. All right. Thank you very much, Noemi.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Feeling Good, a podcast for dentists. To download my free workbook on how better leadership starts with your feelings, go to my website, thelifecoachforbusydentist.com, and click on Get Free Help.